Hi, all. I'm Pastor Nicole Martin. It's my pleasure to be with you here today. I am the pastor of Shepherd's Table here in Williston, North Dakota. I'm also the pastor of West Prairie Lutheran Church. I'm also a board of directors member at Little Lambs Daycare, and I also am the director of Community Connections here in town. My official title would be Reverend. When you go to seminary and you graduate seminary, you are actually a reverend. A brief overview of my job. Most people think pastors' jobs are to preach on Sunday morning, to stand up and lead worship and say a good sermon and then maybe do Sunday school. That is probably this much of my job. I work a lot with people. I go out into people's homes to check on them. I spend a lot of time in nursing homes to meet with those who can't get out of the building. I connect with people who've never heard about God before. I am someone called a missionary, and my job is to go out and talk to people who've never heard of God before. So we do Sunday mornings. We talk to people about who God is. We also do funerals. So if someone in your life has passed on, we sit with families, we listen to families, we listen to people, we help them grieve. So we conduct funerals. We also do weddings and celebrations. We have baptisms, all kinds of things. But the thing that's unique to all of the things is everything is about personal relationship between a pastor and people. As I mentioned earlier, I went to seminary. A seminary is a unique place where a person goes to study just what it means to be a pastor, or just studying about who God is, or maybe a youth director. So when you graduate high school, you have to go to get a 4-year degree, get a bachelor's degree, and then seminary is beyond a bachelor's degree. It's a master's degree. So my master's degree it's called a Master's of Divinity, like studying the divine, studying who God is, and then studying how to help people. If this is God's narrative and we're down here, where do those two things collide? And what does it mean to be an example of Christ in the world? I think the next question is interesting. How did I choose the job, or how did it choose you, is probably more appropriate. Most people who are pastors would tell you they didn't choose to be a pastor, but it's something you're called to do. We have a very interesting word in our vocabulary called vocation. Now, a lot of people think a vocation is something that, like a trade, electrician or a plumber is a vocation, something that has to do with hands-on trade and technology. But in the spiritual world, our definition of vocation is where you see the world's greatest need, where you feel the greatest desire, and where those two things connect. So maybe you're a really good writer, and then you look out into the world and you say, oh, we don't have enough people talking about the good in the world. So you take your skill as a writer and you take this need, and that's where those two places crash. It's where they collide, and that becomes your vocational identity. Maybe you're really, really, really good with your hands and you have a passion to work on cars. So by working on cars, you see working on people's cars as a way to help another human being by making sure they can get to school or to work safely and to take care of their kids. It isn't just about getting a job done for a mechanic. Sometimes it's about helping the person driving the car so that they can have their needs met. A passion plus a need connecting. For me, there's a part of my history, my story, where I realized that God was super, super important to me. There was a lot of drama and trauma going on in my life, and God helped me through that space. And that becomes, for me, recognizing that there are other people who also walk through that drama and trauma, and knowing that God loves them too. So my identity, my vocational identity, my job then is to help people understand that God is around to help them, even when things feel really, really, really bad, really yucky. Benefits of my job. I get to meet the most beautiful, wonderful people. I heard a story last year of a lady who in the 1930s at her home out east, on her picket fence, there was these little symbols. And during that time, in the 1930s, it was an economic crash called the Great Depression, and not enough people had food. Her dad would refer people. Her dad worked for the train station. Her dad would send people to her home, and the symbols on her fence were hobo symbols. And it told the hobos that it was a safe place to be, and they could come into their house, and her mom would feed people because the symbol on her door. I get to hear stories like that. I get to hear the wonderful stories of people whose life have been really hurt, right? And now going through this trauma, how they have managed to heal and are now doing great and wonderful things for other people. In our lifetime, we will all be affected by something. How is it that we're working through that in relationship with God and we've moved out of that? Those are beautiful stories. Another story, helping people who are homeless. Part of my job as the director of Community Connections is to feed people, literally feed people. We give out 15 to 20 sack lunches, usually on a normal day. But this week, in the midst of everything going on in the world, we've started getting out 44 sack lunches to people. Helping people in need who don't have traditional resources is a really big part of my job. And to me, that's a benefit because I'm actually getting to help someone in need. What are the challenges of my job? It's the same thing as the benefit. Working with people can be really hard, right? It's very difficult because there's a lot of emotions inside of that. But working inside of those emotions is a really great blessing. So we just remember to be patient and we remember to breathe. Other parts of challenges about what I do is there's a lot of rules sometimes. Like I can't go around blabbing about other people's business, right? It's sacred. Someone's story is sacred. And so we as professional people have to remember that that human being and their story is sacred and we protect that story. Okay, it's confidential. But sometimes you want to be able to help someone and those rules bind you up. Other challenges. Pastors do a lot of work. I don't think people realize that pastors actually work 60 to 70 hours a week, not just on Sundays. And so it can be very tiring and very challenging as you're listening to everybody's stories and trying to figure out how to help them. So it might be, someone comes in and says, I lost my job and I'm having a hard time. But then your job is to also say, well, where can we get you to where you can get food? Or where can we get you to where you need lodging? It isn't just about listening, but it's also then about helping. Something I wished I had learned or realized before I turned 18. And here's one thing I would communicate to you. There's a very big difference between doing nothing wrong and doing something right. I'll say that again. A big difference between doing nothing wrong and doing something right. I think there's a lot of people who just go around the world going, well, I didn't do anything wrong today. I followed all of the rules. Well, the rules keep you safe, right? In one way. They make this little comfortable box that if you just follow the rules, life is good. But doing something right is different. It's one thing for me to say, today I did nothing wrong. I went to work, I woke up, I made sure I cooked for my family. But doing something right then propels me to say, the meal that I made, maybe I need to share it with someone else. Doing something right challenges our heart to move into a new place where we're helping others and not just helping ourselves. So I'm just going to say that again. There's a big difference between doing nothing wrong versus doing something right. And my fun question here, I graduated from Paint Branch High School in Burtonsville, Maryland. My dad was in the military and we moved around a lot of places, and he retired out of the military in Maryland. And anything else important that I would like to share with you all? Be kind, right? As a pastor, you see both sides of the story. And there's something beautiful about when we're just generous to each other. That doing nothing right versus doing something wrong. When you see someone bullying another person, it's easy to say, well, I didn't do anything wrong. I wasn't the one bullying them. But the person who chooses to do something right actually steps in and tells a teacher or tells that person to stop or makes it aware that the behavior is not okay. Pastors have to work in this world where we're wrestling with that tension. And you also are asked to work in that world as a citizen of this country and as just a good human being. So I invite you to share that with not just myself, but all of the pastors. I invite you to look for all the ways you can do good, all of the ways that you can do right for your neighbor, not just yourself. Ciao. Have a beautiful day. Talk to you later. And if you have any questions for me, I will be happy for your teacher to write them down, and you can have your teacher message me or email me, and I will be happy to respond. I'm sure you might really want to know more things about being a pastor. It's actually a lot of fun. Ciao. See you later. Bye.